Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing great today. So we are going to turn up the St. Paddy's Day pen. I'm pretty excited about these blanks. I can't wait to turn into these things and see how that green turned out. I think it's going to be good. It looks pretty good in the blanks, but I think that once we cut into it and then polish it back up, I think it's going to be pretty cool looking, hopefully. And I like the gold. Hopefully the little speckles worked out. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this all goes. So if you missed last week, this is what we made. Now I've already sent out the boxes, but look at the green. Look at how there's like, I don't know if you can really see that, but there's like a lot of something going on in that green, I think. Some little swirly looking things. And so how we got that effect was just using a pigment, liquid pigment. I created a green color. And so that's like the solid color. And then we also mixed up spring green from P-Town Subby. That's a mica powder, so that's like pearly plus there's like solid. And so hopefully that should give us like different effects. It's not solid, it's not, pearly. Then we threw in some black just to kind of break up the colors. I think just green and gold would have been a little bit kind of, it would have looked fine. But I think that the black adds that contrast. Contrast really works well with blanks, especially if they're, I don't even know how to explain it. If you're not mixing like a light color and a dark color like that, you maybe don't need anything in the middle. White could break up those colors a little bit and add a little bit of interest. Maybe even black, depending on what the colors are. But gold and green are both kind of like on the lighter spectrum. So it's kind of nice to put something that kind of breaks that up a little bit. So hopefully that worked out. I don't know, who knows? That's the theory anyway. And then with the gold, we put in some of the golden starlight glitter. That should, I think we used just Olympic gold, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. Looking at my notes, yeah. So we just put, Olympic gold, just a gold mica powder in there. Which, if you haven't tried Olympic gold, I'm guessing there's probably a pretty much like an equivalent, pretty similar in eye candy. Other people might have one too. But I got to be honest, like Olympic gold is a really good one. It's a little bit more in the orange shade. I was trying to get like a very specific, really a lighter, like almost like a tan gold. And so I have like every single eye candy gold on the planet, and some of them are a little bit more on the yellow side, some of them are a little bit more on the orange. And there's even like Koga gold is like kind of like, I gotta be honest, it's like in the green, like it's a darker one, but it's kind of almost green tinted, which I'm saying these words, and if you just looked at Koga gold, you'd just be like, that's dark gold. But when you kind of put them next to each other, you see these different attributes, these like hues kind of pop out at you a little bit more when you compare them side by side. So there's lots of golds. Like I said, the Olympics a little bit more in the orange, but what I love about it is it's one of the golds, one of the only golds that I know of that you can end up putting less in, and it really makes it opaque. Like it's a pretty good gold for going opaque with things, and you can even mix it with other things to change the color of it a little bit, and that will, you still get that kind of the opacity thing that's going on. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if it's like particle size or what, but it works better than many of them. Some of them, I mean, particle size does matter a little bit, but I don't know what it is. So anyway, gold goes with everything. Yep, that's true. That's true. All right. So, and for what I decided to do, my first instinct was to go grab a Zen pen kit, but I was like, no, we've done a lot of Zens. So what I decided to go with is an element, a brass element, junior. So if you're unfamiliar with the Element series, this is like actual, like real brass. This is not a plating. It's actual cut brass. The cool part about this is it's a little bit heavier. If you want that may be a deterrent or detractor. But, oh shoot, is this a fountain pen? What's going on here? I think this is actually a fountain. Oh, I don't know what's happening. Maybe I got both. Anyway, yeah, there's a roller ball right there. Okay, I don't know what's happening, but anyway, so it's a little bit heavier, which is kind of nice in some. Uh-oh, I just lost a part. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, there it is. Whew. Those little rings. That could have been terrible. The little ring came off. I'm gonna put this back in a baggie before I lose something. Anyway, so the heft is nice, but one of the cool things is because it's actual brass, it will patina over time. And that's kind of a big part of the Element series. They've got copper, which is again solid copper. That stuff, I finally did work on patina. Like you can make a patina. You can create a patina on this stuff by using like salt and vinegar. And I finally messed around with this the other day. I never had vinegar in the shop. So you like soak this stuff, or I don't know, you paint on some vinegar and then you put some salt in there. And you can get some really interesting patina effects. Like this looks like a shipwreck or something like that. So that's with the copper. But I mean, like even on the bottom, it's like dull already. Now you don't have to go to that extreme and mess around with that. I have to be honest, I didn't. That's not my thing. I don't like messing with this kind of stuff. But you don't have to go to that extreme, especially if you're like me and don't really love messing with that kind of thing. But it will work on the brass as well. So the brass and the copper, those two you can like chemically alter. And what you're doing is you're basically like oxidizing it, I think, or something. It's breaking down the top layer and putting something over it, basically. Now, one of the things about that is you're probably going to want to put a clear coat or something over it to keep that in place. You can actually just kind of sand it off. So you will need to lock something like that in. But even if you don't go that route, the more that you handle it, the oils and stuff, the oxygen in the air, the longer that it's just exposed, and like I said, you're kind of touching it and doing stuff, it will patina just like brass. Like it'll darken and do all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. The other ones that are in the Element line, and actually let me grab a link for you guys in the chat here. Again, this is a Turner's Warehouse exclusive item. You can't get these anywhere else. The other two that they have is a stainless steel, which is really awesome. Let me just double check that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, stainless steel. And then the other one's aluminum. So on the other end of the spectrum, I was saying that the brass is heavier. I think the copper is a little heavier. The stainless steel is probably the heaviest one. But the aluminum is a lighter version. If you want a very light pen, I mean, this thing's going to be lighter than your kits even. So it's pretty awesome. Let me grab a link for you guys over at turnerswarehouse.com. Double click, copy this there. Okay, and there's a link in the description already. So anyway, we're gonna make a junior out of it. That was a long-winded speech, but some people may not be familiar with the Element series, and it's a really neat idea. I really like those. And like I said, if you have the time, patience, to really work on the patinaing and all that kind of stuff, you can really make some cool stuff. You should see, I think Chad's done like a video, but he made one that I think he literally calls the pen Shipwreck. Oh, and one other thing that they also sell that kind of has to do with this. Let's see, let me see if I can find, yeah. So if you wanted a full, this is basically going to replace the blank. They actually sell solid blanks that you can also patina. So not only the little kit components, the nibs, the nib or section or whatever, and all the stuff that you see on like the kit that you press in. This is literally like a blank that's solid copper that you can do all this stuff on. You could even engrave it and then do the patina stuff. So it's like a really cool thing. Like I said, it's not really my bag, too much fiddling, But it's pretty cool. So I just wanted to kind of let you know. Yeah, I know it does look like old plumbing stuff or something, but it reminds me of like shipwrecks. You know, like you see a lot of that kind of thing, that blue and all that kind of stuff, like old coins and things. And I think offhand, I can't remember exactly what the brass might go blue also. I can't remember what the patina effect, and there's different things that different chemicals and things that you can apply to them. So it's kind of fun. Like it's like a project within a project kind of thing. So anyway, all right. So let's head over to the lathe. Stop talking and start turning. And and I think I've maybe figured out a simpler solution to my camera problem. I don't think that I need, realistically, the reason I haven't changed anything with my streaming, the cameras and all that stuff. If you don't know what's going on, I have two HDMI. Is it HDMI? Shoot. I don't know if that's going to work actually now that I think about it. Thought I had an answer. I don't think I have an answer. I thought I had an answer. I forgot. They aren't HDMI. They're USB. Anyway, I thought I had an answer, but the problem I have is I have two USB cam kind of thing, or no, it is HDMI. Yeah, they are. Sorry. Okay, I'm confusing myself at this point. I have two HDMIs and I have one webcam, which is what you're looking at right now. The problem is, originally I was going to buy one of those little switcher things, the A10 minis or something like that. But the problem is you can't hook up easily. It doesn't just plug right in and work. An HD or a USB cam into those things. It all has to be HDMI. And the problem is those things are really expensive. I'm like, and all I want it for is to push buttons and choose a camera. So I'm like, eh. So today, now that I'm all straight, so two of the HDMIs, that's the problem. I'm using two of the cam links from Elgato, and it causes my camera one of them to freeze up when I switch. But I actually found like a simple HDMI switcher that's like $10. So I think I can probably just get away with that and solve all the problems, and everything will be great. So just wanted to let you know if you are running into that problem for some reason. I think we'll have to see. I have to see if this thing actually does work. But it might solve my problem, and I think everything will be good. So one other thing that I wanted to mention before we get going, I know I'm talking all forever, an update on the drill sharpener thing. I told you that I bought a drill sharpener. It's a Weaver. It's, I don't know, a lot of people say that the drill doctors work fine. I've heard so many people say that they don't work that I was like, I'm not spending $100 on one of these things. So I found one that's like 300, I think 250 or 300, which is a little bit more than I would have liked to spend, but if it's so simple, this is the thing. $300 to me, if I can just stick the bit in and it's like super simple and it just works and I get good results, $300 is kind of great. Because otherwise I'd have to ship my drill bits out to somebody else, which is just a pain. Plus it costs money. I don't know how much, I honestly offhand don't even know how much drill bit sharpening costs me, but you know, I mean, I can't imagine that it's much less than $5 to $10 per bit. So by the time I've sharpened 30 bits, I've paid for the drill sharpener, you know, which is not that hard to do. The problem I have is the other problem I have is I end up buying more drill bits because I don't want to take the time to go drive all the way to Reno to get drill bits sharpened. So anyway, I bought the machine and I was like, oh, it seems like it works really well, but I hadn't really tested a bunch of drill bits or like drilled with the sharpened ones. I've done enough at this point. I probably used probably about 5 to 10 drill bits. They work excellent. They're like brand new. So if that is something that you might be interested in, I'll try and go get a link and put it in the show notes later. I want to just make sure that the problem is that there's like 3 or 4 different sharpeners, and I want to put the one that I got because it kind of is the better version of most of them. Unless you need to do like gigantic ones, there's a specific one that goes up to like 3/4 inch drill bits. This one goes to half, I think. So that's most people's drill bits. Now, the one thing that I will say is I don't trust this thing with like super small drill bits. I haven't tried it, but those are so cheap. If you're talking like an 1/8 inch bit, you can just buy a pack of 10 of those things for like $5 probably somewhere. So I don't know that it makes much sense if if your specific need is for very small drill bits. But for, anything, I think I did like a 1/4 inch probably. And I would say that worked it fine. Minimum 1/4 inch, maybe even a 3/16. I don't know. So, pretty small, but like not the little tiny ones. All the way up to 1/2 inch works well, and it will do split points. And I'm not going to get into that, but if you know what it is, it does do those as well. I haven't tested to see if the split is working perfectly, but you can fine tune everything. If that is something that you need, it should work. I've seen other people who have messed around with it and tested stuff on metal. It holds the line. That's what a split pointing does, is it'll help if you're like drilling into a kind of a smooth type thing. It'll kind of stay in the same place so you can start that hole. So most people don't need that necessarily, but I will say sharp drill bits are extremely important. I get questions from people who are like having issues, drilling my blanks out. And the problem is I don't know if their drill bits are sharp or not. It's kind of hard. And a lot of times you kind of think it is. But the reality is it's really not sharp. And if the minute that it starts to be like, feels like you got to kind of put more pressure, it's dull basically. And you're much better off drilling with a sharp bit. So, even if you don't get this thing for like, a lot of people are going to be like $300 drill sharpener. That's kind of ridiculous. But even the drill doctor, there are enough people who have said that worked for them. I think Chad said he gets reasonable results with his. I might recommend, looking into this kind of thing, because continually buying more drill bits is kind of silly. Eventually you're going to grind it down to the point where you can't resharpen it, or it's kind of useless. But if you're doing a lot of pens and drilling a lot of things, like, it's not a bad thing to have. And like I said, this thing, there's really no setup. You stick the bit in this little chuck thing. It's like basically a collet. It tells you how far to go to poke it out of the collet. And then there's just like a couple little setting things that take 2 seconds. So it's like the minute you notice your drill bit starting to be like, it's taking a little extra force, which the reason what's happening is once it starts dulling, then you're going to start heating the blanks up, or you're going to have to take like tiny cuts, but that can start bits wandering and doing weird stuff. So sharp bits are good. That's the PSA for today. So anyway, let's head over to the lathe. I think I might have figured out a way. This is working. I think I figured out a way. If I don't switch to a different view, I think this works right now. So instead of me doing things normally. Okay, so I don't know. It might be the stupid software program that I'm using that's doing this. But anyway, we're over at the lathe. Let's get started. I got to pull my phone out so I can see the chat. Oh, man. Let's see here. Where are we going here? YouTube. To my channel. Yep. Okay. We'll turn the volume down so we don't have to listen to me. All right. Make sure that we're in here and things are looking pretty. I'll zoom in just a little bit. Get up closer. All right. So before I start turning, one little tip may or may not really matter in this case. Sometimes it does though. So what I've done here is on the outside, if you can see that X, that's where the blank lines up. Like, it was like this, then I cut it. So lining up like the pattern. In many cases, swirl blanks, does it matter that much? I don't know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So However, what I do, the problem is the minute that I start turning this, that X is gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here on the inside and mark the general location on the inside. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a Sharpie mark on the inside of the blank. I'm not going to turn that away. So I do that on both sides of this thing so that I know about where it should line up. Now, a lot of times I'll kind of look at it. So depending on how much material you took off, like, you know, if you're using like a full kerf saw blade on the table saw to cut these, there may be so much material gone that it doesn't really line up and make any sense anyway. It doesn't matter that much. The best way, if you really want to try and get the pattern to be as close as possible, is to use like a pretty small bandsaw blade to cut your blanks. And then make sure that when you put the tube in, it's closer to where the side of in this case, this side of the blank. Make sure you don't have that pushed way in, because you're gonna have to cut off a bunch of material there. So keep it closer to that side where it meets up, and you'll get the best match you can. But like I said, sometimes it doesn't really matter. So I like to look at it, just kind of see if that is the best way. A lot of times it is the best way that, you know, to line them up, but sometimes it really doesn't matter. And if I, like, basically it lets me know if I don't get this thing perfect, I'm not going to really stress out about it, kind of thing. 13, let's see, I got to get these, I got to figure out, make sure I'm putting the right bushing in the right spot here. All right, so we got that. So let's start with this guy. We're going to go this way. Doesn't really matter which way. All right. And then let me get my dust collector set up here. There's probably a million other ways that you can kind of like mark the blanks like that, but the Sharpie on the inside generally works pretty well for me. Does anybody else have any little tricks like that? Get this thing kind of lined up there. It's pretty wobbly. Any alignment or any other types of tricks? I'm always open to new suggestions. One thing I've definitely found is I don't do things. I like to find like the most difficult way to do things. That's one thing I've definitely learned. All right, so we'll turn the dust collector on. Calvin's here. How's it going? All right, get the tool out and let's see what this thing looks like. I'm gonna just crack the lower thing. You know what? After I switched those bushings out, I realized that I had it right the first time. Pretty sure. Well, maybe not. Hold on a minute, guys. I gotta double check this. Where's my line? Okay, the line's there. Let's see. So I gotta think about this. So, oh my God, I need to get a new cheap caliper. 12, that's wrong. So that one, the big one goes there. smaller one goes back there. Okay. We are better. Thinking about was thinking more about how a cigar goes together. That's not the right way. I know. I still get them backwards too. A lot of times I like to just pull out the instructions, kind of double check and actually literally lay all the parts out. And I'll do that actually before the stream and then put the bushings in ahead of time. This time I just kind of popped them in and I was like, all right, that's right. But then I was like, wait, I don't know. And then I said, wait again. So I don't know. In the end, we'll just see if I even got it even right. I don't know. We got a pretty good day of snowboarding in on Thursday. It's definitely slush, but I actually like slushy days. They're fine. I saw somebody post on Instagram, and she captured the essence of exactly how I feel. I really don't like it when it's crowded. So I don't care how good the conditions are. I'm not standing in line for hours to take one run. So she was talking about there's way less people in spring, and I think that's one of the things that I like. But I mean, you can have a pretty good day on slush. Is it the most ideal? No, but it can be a pretty fun day up there. Now, I did not paint or do anything with the tubes. I kind of figure, oftentimes, if I got a blank that has gold in it, as long as I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be transparent, there's not going to be any real see-through areas. If there's somewhere it's kind of translucent, where you can maybe make out that there's a tube down there or something, whatever, you can kind of see it. But it's really not obvious, and you're really not going to see the glue splotches or anything like that. Oftentimes I will just leave the brass as it is because it's probably going to look like the gold that's in the blank. So that's kind of my game plan. I also Well, I also am a little bit lazy, but at the same time, I'd rather mess my pen up and tell you guys, for the pen blank club, you better paint this thing or else you're going to see glue, or whatever. It kind of allows me to take the fall, and hopefully you guys will get better results, basically. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to get you guys in here a little bit here so you can kind of look at the patterning. Now, let's see. So you guys know that I dropped the black down quite a bit. Now this one may just have a little bit more black right here, but there's only like maybe a quarter of the total amount of resin was black, but you can see how it really takes over. Like I could have put even less in this thing. So with black, try to pour like thin amounts, and don't go too heavy. If you've got 3 colors or whatever, don't put an equal amount of black unless that's really what you're going for, because it can really take over a lot of the blank. But down here, so we'll see once we get it sanded and all that stuff. But man, the green is great because it has that solid, and it's a pretty good looking green. I think I'm very happy with the choice of specific color of green for the the solid color. But then you've got, it almost feels like there's like, somebody mentioned like putting in interference green, and that spring green just being pearl as kind of an opposite to that solid green really adds a lot of interest. So there's just little pearly blobs here and there. Maybe could have poured at a higher temperature, just slightly, possibly. The tough thing is, I was saying, if you're pouring 12 blanks at once versus 3, you don't have as much time, so where you start, especially if you're stirring and doing all these different things while you're pouring, doing like the stir stick thing. If you need to raise the temperature, it may cause you to have to pour less blanks at a time. Like, drop down to a 6 blank mold, and you can start at a higher temperature because it won't take you as long to get through the pouring, the actual physical pouring of it. So let's see here. Slow this guy down. So I've gotten a couple questions about polishing, my blanks, resin blanks. Couple people in the last month. So I'm just going to go through and explain the sanding process. That way I can, if they're watching, I told them both to join in. And I'd say over the past couple months, I've had quite a few questions. So I'm going to go through. So the big thing is, I'm going to start here. If you can get the blank pretty smooth, I mean, I've got a good amount of tool marks on there still. It wasn't perfect. It's not like I took a skew to it and it's perfect. But I found that as long as there's not massive ridges and you got to do shaping, if you have to do that, I would pull the tool out and try and fix the shaping issues with the tool, and get it reasonably flat. Try and take maybe one final, this is always the tough one, take one final smoothing pass to try and get it as smooth as possible. But I mean, if you have tool marks, it's fine. I start with 600 grit wet dry sandpaper, this black stuff. I think this is the best way to go. It takes off a lot of material, it's a densely packed grit. So it's going to take off a good amount of material pretty quick with this 600. I mean, maybe if you've got a lot of ridges and bumps and it's pretty gnarly, maybe step down to a 400 grit wet dry, but you really shouldn't need to start lower than that. If you do, you need to go back to the tool, really, and kind of clean things up or work on trying to get it better off the tool. It's detrimental to start sanding at 80 or 120 or these low grits. You're gonna have to do so much sanding, and there's just a lot more chance that you're gonna leave a slightly deeper scratch in there and not get it all perfectly taken out as you go through the grits. And I just think that the lower grit you start with, the more chance at the end you're going to get a dull blank, because it's sometimes very hard to tell if you've truly taken out the 80, 120, 180 grit scratches. It looks like it, but sometimes there's something a little left over. So if you can start at 600, you're already on your way to an easier time. It's going to be quicker, number one. But that first grit, whatever you start with, really try and get the blank nice. Like, spend a little extra time on that, and that should help you start right. Because if you can ensure that you've gotten the blank as smooth as possible, and the only thing that's left, on it are 600 grit scratches, no ridges or divots or any of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, the surface is smooth. Then all you have to do is take out the 600 grit scratches. All right, and then as you move on, you'll take out progressively. Just remove the previous grit scratches, and that's a much easier game than trying to fix issues that you didn't get out on that first grit. All right, so that's probably pretty good for this one. Now, the next thing, I highly recommend that you do stop the lathe after you've been sanding with it on. Stop it and do this sideways motion. And I recommend doing it with the same grit. I know that's kind of like extra work. You could make the argument that just do this side-to-side thing on the next grit. But I like doing it with the same grit because that leaves 600 grit scratches in it going sideways. Now I'm going to move on to my next grit, and especially when you're like starting out and trying to kind of figure out how much sanding do I need to do to get this thing out, or maybe it's just a really important pen that you want to nail the sanding and polishing on the first step. Dry it off, and when you look, you might even need to get like a little magnifying glass. It helps to have like a raking light coming towards you, bouncing towards off the surface to your eyes, and you can really see that scratch pattern. But after you're done, so now I'm going to move on to this green Zona paper, and I'm putting the opposite direction scratches in this. Let's say that I've sanded, we're just going to assume that I think that I've sanded enough. Stop it, dry it off, and look, and if you've still got scratches going sideways, you're not done sanding with the green. You haven't gotten all the 600 grit scratches out. So it gives you a signpost where, if you really want to spend the time and look and make sure, I think that once you kind of get the idea, you've done it and looked and double checked your work, eventually you're kind of going to get to the point where you kind of know how much work on each grit. You'll get like a little bit of a routine. I'm not saying it's going to be foolproof, but you shouldn't have to stop and look at the thing and every single time. But it's good to kind of get an understanding if you're having issues, or maybe you're just starting out. Then you'll kind of know. Now, another thing is speeds. I usually recommend between 500 RPMs and 1,000. I really wouldn't recommend going faster than that. Always use water. Always use water. It's going to help, especially if you're using this wet dry sandpaper. This stuff will clog in a second, and you do not want your paper clogging up, and then you're wiping literally plastic shavings all over it. You're going to burnish the blank, and you're not going to get those scratches out unless you drop down with a fresh piece of sandpaper and sand them out. That, I think, is a cause for a lot of people getting to the end, and then the blank is kind of dull because you're polishing a burnished plastic mark, basically not polishing it. So always keep your, and dunk often to clear that paper out. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to sand this, with the next grit. I don't know if this matters. I do it on top, I do it on the bottom a little bit. It just kind of changes the pressure and the angles. I don't know if it's really necessary, but I do it. So do whatever you want, during the process. And then what I'm going to do is stop it, and then I'm going to hit it with the sideways. Now, if, at this point I can't tell if I got all the 600 grit scratches out because I'm putting the green scratches sideways. But if I was going to stop and look, I would do it before I do the sideways motion, of course. And then just kind of do that, and go through. Now, people ask what's the best polishing method, like way to do it. And there is no best way. There's the best way that works the best for you. They all work. If you find that you get better results buffing, do buffing. A lot of people will go through and either use the Zona or the micro mesh. I have to be honest, I think Zona's cheaper, and I personally at least prefer the thin stuff because I can tell how much pressure, and I can make sure that the sandpaper is following contours and all that stuff. I don't like those micro mesh pads because it just feels like this bulky thing that I don't know if I'm actually conforming it to the shape or sanding right. I never got good results with micro mesh pads. So I don't know, that may just be me. But if you haven't tried the Zona, papers, I like them. There's actually less grits, but it goes to the same, micron level. So you're doing the same amount of work with, I think it's like 1 or 2 less grits that you have to go through. So that just makes sense. And I think it's cheaper. So, and you can cut it into just these little squares. You get it in an 8.5 by 11 sheet and you can just cut it up. I think it'll go farther. It's cheaper off the bat and you're doing less work. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, but if you're, again, if you're getting really good results with micro mesh, then there's no reason to switch. It's more for people that are not necessarily getting good results. I'd recommend trying the Zona papers. Now, I only go up to the gray. Sometimes maybe the blue if I'm really feeling like I really want to go a little higher. But I only go up to the gray and then I switch over to Magic Juice. That's just generally the fastest, easiest way, best way that I get, good results. I used to buff, but I found that I actually get better results doing this Zona to Magic Juice. Now, a lot of people will just go up through the grits with their paper, whether it's Zona or micro mesh, and a lot of people get really good results. For some reason, I get better results with Magic Juice, so I just do it that way. But you can do it with just the papers, and you go through every single, grit, wet sanding it, and that's good. But the main thing is, again, you want to keep the blank cool, you want to keep the junk clear. You want to make sure that you're getting, giving each step enough time. And you should get a really well-polished blank, And again, you can buff. Buffing works. The one thing that, and I get good results still buffing, but it's more work, takes a little bit longer. And realistically, I still have to come back, because I would just do triple E buffing wheel and then white diamond, and I would call it a day. And what I found was the white diamond really isn't a high enough, like a fine enough abrasive to get a really good gloss, like the best gloss. I'd have to come back and hit it with like a scratch remover or like a swirl remover type, like a super high grit, fine grit, like a polish. So nowadays I would come back and hit it with step 5 and 6, both of them, of the Magic Juice. Previously I got pretty good results. I would actually use a buffing wheel with this, but the 205 Meguiar's worked pretty well for me. There's lots of things. It doesn't really matter what brand. They've all got something that's like a high, like that final polish on a car or plastic or whatever, something like that. That will give you a better result. But one other thing is I really like the Magic Juice Step 6 because I find, I don't know if they've actually put something in it or not. I feel like they have something that reduces the static on your blank, because that can happen when you're polishing, especially, especially buffing, but you're creating kind of friction on this thing with, sandpaper or whatever. And I find that the blanks end up being kind of staticky. The other thing is fingerprints tend to stick a little easier depending on what you end up with. And that step 6 just seems to both reduce the amount of like fingerprints and stuff that get on the blank, as well as reduce that static, which will attract dust, basically. So that, you know, and another one that works exactly the same, I don't know what, I don't know what they have in it, but the ring bling from Turner's Warehouse is another one as like a final thing that also tends, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a thing that's in it or what, but it tends to reduce fingerprints as well as static. So that's everything I know about polishing and all that stuff. Now, some people will ask if you can put a finish on. If it's just a resin blank, I mean, you can, but you really shouldn't have to. You should be able to get them pretty glossy. Maybe it depends on what type of material, what type of plastic. But if you're talking like Lumelite clear, and I mean, really, most epoxies and all that stuff, they polish up pretty well as long as you did the polishing stuff right. Now, if you just, for some reason, your polishing game is just not good, but you got a really good CA game, then by all means, do whatever gives you the best results. And there's no reason not to do a CA finish on a resin blank. I just find it is just kind of extra, like overkill. You don't really need to do that usually. But if you're going to do that, what I would recommend is I wouldn't sand up higher than probably 1,000 grit. Just get it nice and smooth, but you still kind of want to have a little bit of something for that CA glue to kind of grab onto. I think it helps, and it's going to hide those 1,000 grit scratches. They're not going to be visible or anything. You could probably even stop it. I don't think that I would stop at the 600 grit with the wet dry sandpaper. That stuff's more aggressive, it feels like. So, but you could probably stop at you could probably stop at the green Zona paper, something like that. Like I said, it's somewhere 800, 1,000, and then stop and then apply your CA finish and everything should be good. Now, if you got like a hybrid blank or something like that you want to seal, then definitely put a CA finish over top of that. Pine cones embedded in resin, that kind of thing. So there's no reason not to do a CA finish other than it's just more work. And like I said, if you prefer that, if you like the look of the CA finish, if you get better results or whatever the case may be, then by all means go for it. There's no reason not to do it. It's good, but you don't want to polish it up to 50,000 grit and then try and put a CA finish on. I think you may run into a problem with the CA finish adhering. So down the road you could get some kind of cracking or peeling up if it's not got sufficient tooth to kind of bite into on the material. So, there you go. Everything I know about polishing blanks in 10 minutes. All right, so 1660. When I sand resin, I will sand up to 12,000 no matter what. Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it. The reason I don't, I guess it depends, and then you polish after, use magic juice or something like that afterwards. The only thing is, you're kind of doing double duty. That, technically, I prefer, I'm lazy, I guess. But in theory, all you need to do is progressively go up. Now, where some people may run into issues, even if you're progressively going up grits, if you take too big of a step between grits, that can be detrimental, but you really don't need to go to 12,000 and then drop down to something that's 1,500 again, and then go through another round of things. You shouldn't have to do that. 800 should take out 600 scratches. So to redouble work doesn't have to be done, typically. But if you've got a method that works every time consistently and you like the results, then by all means, again, don't change it. It's always the case, with woodworking, turning, really anything. A lot of times there's 1,000 ways to do things. Some people may look at your method and say, well, that's silly, or I don't want to do it that way, or, you know, whatever. And that's fine for them, but as long as they can get it done a different way and it works the same for them. But if you've got a solid method, then, you know, that I always want to preface that. If I'm going to tell somebody, like, this is how I do it, this is what I think about it, this isn't necessarily the way to do it all the time, though. Now, one thing that I just did, though, that I think is a good tip. So I'm on the fence. I really think that you're better off if you're going to apply magic juice. I think these are less abrasive, these blue paper towels. I don't know if that's entirely necessary, but I think that applying it, once you get the magic juice on this thing, I don't think that I don't know the answer to this yet, and I don't know exactly how to get the answers exactly without doing a lot of work, but I think once you put the stuff on and it's kind of like on the surface of the paper, I think you're getting, you know, like step one. Is like the grit that's happening when you're polishing. What worries me is that when I move up to like step 6, that this paper is actually more abrasive than the step 6 polish that I'm applying, and you're not getting as good of a polish, basically. But I don't know that for sure, and I do switch to a different non-abrasive paper thing, but it is not rippable, so it could be dangerous if it got wrapped up on the lathe. So I don't necessarily recommend this, and it costs more, but it's what I do. However, what I will recommend people do not do is, after you've applied the polish, then come back and with like a dry paper towel, start wiping off that step 1 or whatever you're on. Pretty sure that's going to add, maybe not at step 1, but like when you start getting up to 4, 5, and 6, like I'm pretty sure that the sandpaper, or I mean the paper towel, is more abrasive than step 4, 5, or 6. So don't, and I don't even do this at step 1 at this point. Put your paper towels away. Go grab yourself just one of these microfibers, something that's a non-scratch. Microfiber is non-scratch, and use that to wipe off that excess, like step 1 or whatever you're using. I really do think this is something that you should do, because I always I'd finish up, I would put the you know, step 1 here, apply it, you know, the thing's running, and what I would do is I would fold over my paper to a dry spot, and then start either with the lathe on or, you know, with it off, start wiping off the blank, and I would kind of get like these random scratches at the end, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm pretty sure that that's what the problem was, is I was putting scratches in from the paper towel. And again, I don't know, you know, step 1, I don't know what like the grit of paper towel is. Probably doesn't matter at like step 1, 2, maybe 3. But when you start getting to like the really higher end ones, that's where I think you may be introducing more scratches from the paper towel. So just grab something else to wipe it off, and you shouldn't have to worry about that. This thing's looking pretty glossy. So again, paper towel goes in the trash, but never use a giant rag like this with the lathe on, because if it gets wrapped up, like, you're gonna get hurt. And I just find like a new edge, new little piece. So I did the step 1 there. So I'm gonna do step 2 here. You don't want to start rubbing step 1 back on, you know. So I just kind of move around, and then I wash that thing eventually and move on to another one. Okay, so step 3. I mainly just wipe this on so it doesn't sling it all over the place when I start the lathe up. I'm running my lathe at about 1500. I think their directions recommend like 2000, but it tends to, it might be my dry climate, But it just tends to like instantly, whatever, dry up, or what I don't know. I don't know what the word is exactly, but I feel like I'm not like applying it for long enough if I go much faster than 1500. And with magic juice, it's not like it's like a friction polish. It's just polish. You just need to, you don't need to like jam your finger. Don't apply heavy pressure. Just moderate pressure is fine. And if you haven't tried magic juice, definitely give that a shot. What I really like about magic juice is you can buy the sample set of it from Turner's Warehouse, and it's like $15. You get a reasonably decent amount. I mean, you're gonna make, I don't know how many pens it would actually do, but I mean, you're talking tens of pens at least. Has anybody bought the sample thing, and like kind of how many pens did you get out of that thing? The test, whatever, I don't know what they call it, sample pack. I'd be curious to know how far that went. I think it would go pretty far. So like for $15, that's a pretty cheap. Let me just try this out and see how it works. If it doesn't work, okay, $15 down the drain. But it's better than, like, I don't recommend people go out and try buffing just for the heck of it, because that's like hundreds of dollars to get that set up. And if it doesn't really work that well for you, you're sunk. All right, so let's see, what step was I on? I don't even know what step I'm on. I think I might have already done 4, but we're gonna do it again because I lost track. Okay. One thing that you could do is, if you got a big rag like this, the only issue is if you cut it, you're going to get like fraying on the ends and all that stuff. But you could cut this into little strips and have like one for every grit. That would probably be a smart way to go. You could even get like the pack where there's a bunch of different colors and have, one color for every grit. That'd be kind of cool. Just so you don't grab the wrong one. Where's Marquetta? We can call it Polish Buddies. I wouldn't probably recommend using terry cloth for that. Use microfiber, but my step 5 seems to be kind of clogged up here. Let's see. Come on. Oh, actually, I like to switch over to my... Hold on a minute. All right. Step 5. And I kind of like this wiping off, going in that opposite direction, kind of like what I was talking about before. You're probably getting a little, I mean, I don't know how much this matters or, whatever, but you're probably going to be putting, even with this polish, a slightly different scratch pattern on that, in a different direction. So it's not a bad idea to wipe off that way. May not do anything, but it could. Who knows? Could help just a little bit. But they, even on the headlight restoration kits and things like that, plastics, most whatever, companies or whoever recommends sanding in opposite directions when you're sanding plastics in general. So I do think that that's an important step. I think you're probably going to get better results. One of the theories that, I don't know exactly if this is totally true, but it does kind of make sense. One of the theories that I heard about why you would want to do that is if you've got scratches and, if you've got scratches all going one direction and then you move up to the next grit and the next grit and they're all going in the same direction, those grits can kind of like just end up getting stuck in a deeper trench without really taking out that scratch. But if you're cutting it sideways, you don't run that risk as much. You're kind of cutting up those trenches into smaller trenches, and then the next one goes the other way, and so you're just getting a better pattern of sanding and eliminating the risk of that next grit just kind of following the same scratch. And I've definitely seen a difference since I switched to doing that every single time. It's noticeable. I mean, it's not like massively different, but it's definitely glossier, and I do think that it actually matters. So, just trying to kind of share. I don't know, and like I said, there's probably other people that do things differently or have better ways to do things even than I've come up with. But I'm taking what the heck's going on here? Taking my tailstock out. Okay, so look at that. Kind of looks like my Jamaican Me Crazy blank. I mean, it's kind of the same idea, but I really like that green. See how like there's just pockets? I mean, there's a lot of that, of the pearl right in that area, but if you switch over here, there's like solid areas where it's not shiny. Shiny little bits up there, a little bit down there. It's kind of cool. So you get like a different look when you're combining different, and you don't even necessarily have to do like, like a liquid pigment, like a solid color and a mica. You could do just multiple colors of mica powders and you get similar interesting results. Now, one thing I like to wipe off, look at that junk. All the polish kind of ends up on the end there. We don't want that when we assemble. All right. So there's the body part of the pen. So I got to move the camera and I got to pop my tailstock back in, or my live center, because I set it up in the wrong position. Okay, there's that. Move the lathe buddy. Trusty lathe buddy. If you don't have a lathe buddy also, you got to go check those out. Turner's Warehouse has them. I think they got lathe-buddy.com now. Just go there. Either way, it's a good system. All right. What's happening here? Okay, there we go. That's starting to... There we go. Okay, that's what I want. And doesn't really matter. All right, so any questions? I need a drink. Oh yeah, I saw Roman. They're at the mate. Ahoy, matey. I'm just glad that we haven't frozen or anything. Okay, let's get this second one done. This one will go pretty quick. And then we'll assemble. Still haven't gotten the new assembly tool thing. Pen press thing. Still waiting on the beast molds to get back in stock. But hopefully soon. Let's see here. I got everything I need. A tool. That'll help. I learned my lesson. I'm taking the gloves off. Actually, there we go. I think there's a decent amount more green in the cap. I kind of chose that when I was cutting up the blanks. So it should be like kind of more green, and then it, you know, so again, the amount of black, I think there was just more in the bottom, but if I'm being honest, I would have rather had a little bit less black. Just little swoops, and again, the way you control that is just pouring very small and but like thin amounts. Like, don't blob it in there. Let it just drizzle down into the blank when you're pouring them, and you'll get just little kind of thin wisps. I got a little overexcited, I guess. But it also just kind of starts with how much you've actually mixed up. If you mix up less and put it in a smaller cup, that can also kind of help you control how much is being poured. And so I think if I remember correctly, I think I mixed up like 80 grams. I think honestly, probably go with like 50 next time. It's kind of tough. You got to figure out the right balance of amount for the amount of blanks you're pouring. I don't pour a whole lot of 12 blank pours, you know, like that. And everyone can be kind of different, but I think 50 is probably enough. You don't want too little, because then you kind of run out before you're done. But maybe I'd try like 60 next time. See how that goes. All right, let's see. I think I'm pretty close there. Sometimes it helps to kind of take a step back away from the blank, kind of see what the shape is. I like to put a little camber on mine, a little bit of a hump. necessarily like the just straight, but it looks like I got a little bit of material right here. It's a little fat down there. Okay. Calling that good. Turn off the dust collector. God. I need to invent a silent dust collector. That'd be great. All right, let's see here. Oh man, yeah, cost of airfare. Oof. All right. Yeah, so I'm trying to get out to the Pacific Northwest Pen Show. So for anybody that doesn't know, that's not like the pen turners gatherings or the symposiums or any of those things. This is for people who are collecting pens, basically. So most people are just, you know, if you're a maker, that means that you got a booth and you're selling pens at it. Now there is room, I think, for blank makers to maybe go. I don't know. I'm not planning to have a booth, but I think there could be. Like there's not like, I don't know. Elise, I think sometimes sets up a booth and she'll have blanks, and Jonathan Brooks sells blanks there, but he's really there to sell pens. There's really not, I don't know, as far as I know, there's not a lot, I don't think there's many people going there. I don't know if there's anybody going there strictly to sell blanks, which is kind of interesting, you know, to sell materials to pen makers, or even the people that want pens. They may see the material and say, hey, I want this person to make me a pen out of it. So there's that, but it's mainly just to go see pens. And I think, you know, if you're a pen maker, I think it'd be, you know, do you need to like just go to the event? Unless you're like a collector, you really like pens, you know. I don't know that you need to go to a bunch of them, but I do think that it's worth it if you make pens to go to one of these things sometime and just kind of see. It's amazing. It's really cool. But I kind of liked it. It was kind of fun. And there's, you know, I met a few people at the first show. Like to kind of see them again. It's a little bit of a different world. It's mostly the people that are making the custom bespoke, you know, kitless pens for the most part. So it's a little bit of a different world than, you know, the kind of traditional pen maker crowd. But pretty cool people. The collector people are cool. The materials, the suppliers and all that stuff. I met a few people from the other thing that you'll get there is like Pilot and Visconti and, you know, Pelican, like the big pen brands are there too. It's kind of a weird mishmash of a lot of different stuff going on. Then you've also got the vintage pens, which is a whole other thing. People collect vintage pens or restore things. Then you've got all like the inks for fountain pens and like journals and all that kind of stuff, and pen cases and stuff. So like the supplies, paper, notebooks and things. It's really a unique experience. If you haven't been to one, I'd recommend, you know, checking one out if there's one kind of close to you. But I might go to the Pacific Northwest Pen Show, which I think is in July. Got to get my hotel and all that stuff soon. I got to decide if I'm flying or driving though. And then I might go to the Rocky Mountain this year too. And I think those might be the two that I'm looking at. I may not go to SWAT this year. I'm not sure. Funding for travel is a little bit low right now. And I may be able to, like, if I can get away with driving, those that's why I kind of like the Rocky Mountain and Pacific Northwest. I think, I mean, I know I can drive there for sure. And it's not too long. Portland might be a 2-day trip though, so that might kind of kill that for driving. All right, so that ought to be pretty good. I'm going to do a little bit of side-to-side action. And I'm definitely not pressing very hard when I do the side-to-side. I don't want to jam in. Now, I don't know. On one hand, if you you know, I'm actually usually doing it fairly light, but another school of thought is to give it like, I wouldn't put hard pressure probably, but moderate pressure, and then again going back to the using it as a signpost, like you definitely need to wait before you make sure that you've gotten all those scratches out. So, you know, a little bit more pressure on the side to side might actually kind of help make sure when you go to the next grit that you've done enough work to get everything out. Never really thought about it that way. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make it out to SWAT this year. We've got the other problem is there's a little, you know, like I said, depending on what's going on. Like I definitely have to choose between Rocky Mountain and SWAT. I can't do three events. But the other problem is that we might have some stuff going on in August during that time. So it's a bummer because SWAT's awesome. I love SWAT. That is one that you can go to every year, have a great time, and you're guaranteed to have a great time every time you go. But I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, so we'll have to kind of see how that pans out. I'm still waiting to get finalized information on, like I said, we got a kind of family thing that might be happening at that time. Tentative right now. Okay, that's probably pretty well. I like to do a little on the top here. Do a little on the top. Okay. We'll do a little side to side action. Go to the gray. Now a couple nuanced things with the wet sanding. You might have noticed I like to wipe off the blank completely after I'm done with the 600 grit. I just find that it takes off a lot more material than these polishing papers do. And so I like to clean off all that swarf after I'm done with the 600. I kind of focus a little bit more time with the 600 grit, the first step, and I just want to get all that junk off. I don't generally switch or wipe it off, but you know, in between grits with the polishing papers once I move to Zona. You could. I don't know if there's an impact there or not. I mean, you know, if I had a bunch of material like plastic stuff all over the place, then I would definitely, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I haven't noticed the problem. Now the other thing is, you might notice I'm using the same water bucket for all the grits, and some people will actually use a separate like cup or, you know, different thing for every grit. So, and I think the idea is like, because some of these particles, the grit particles, could break off and then be floating around in your water, and then you dump, you know, your gray in there, but it's got 600 grit particles that broke off. I don't know. That gets very theoretical, and I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't think I've tried having, you know, a bunch of different buckets either, but I get good enough results. I just haven't felt the need to mess with that or look into it. But it is something that you could look into if you're, you know, if you wanted to try it out. Some people do that. All right, I'm just gonna kind of blow this off. Sometimes there's a little bit of water in between the bushings and the blank. All right, now we're switching over to the magic juice. The juice is loose. I'm gonna dry my hands off here. David Bingham is in the house. You're just in time. We're gonna polish up the second half, and then we're gonna put this sucker together, and it should look pretty good, I think. I'm looking forward to seeing how this looks with that brass element kit. Also, that's gonna be cool to see. I'm gonna go get some more blue towels for my polishing here. Now again, one thing you could do, I already told you that I switched to like a scratch, non-scratch cloth material for step 5 and 6. You could apply the magic juice with some sort of a microfiber towel, but again, just be warned, that stuff doesn't rip, and if you do get it, if it gets caught up on the lathe while it's running, there is a chance it could like suck your fingers in and you get hurt because it won't rip. I think if you cut it into small enough pieces, and that's kind of my game plan with these things. So again, I bought these little, I don't know what these things are, microfiber cleaning cloth things. I got them on Amazon, and it's just a non-scratch kind of microfiber type material. You could even use something like this, but you're definitely going to get fraying if you cut something like this up. This one doesn't fray. That's why I looked into that. So what I do is, you saw that I had a square. These weren't expensive, but they weren't, I mean, it's an extra expense. So, and I don't reuse them. But then what I do is I just cut it in half, as you saw. And then I've just got these little squares. Now, I'm okay with, if that got caught up on the lathe, I think there's very little chance that I'm going to get hurt. It'll probably just rip it out of my hand, and my hand will be sitting here. It's not going to grab my hand and suck it into the lathe. But like a giant long towel, like do not use this. That will grab you and pull you in. So you could find some, cut up some, some small strips of microfiber or do something like that, and then throw out the worry that the paper towels are adding any scratches at all. But you have to balance that with a little bit of risk of injury, possibly. It's pretty small, but I don't feel the need to do it personally, even. So I think it's more of a problem at the higher polish steps, really. So again, about 1500. The speed I go, that thing's slowing down there. So we're gonna tighten it up a little bit. And I just go for a little bit, chuck the paper towel thing, and then grab this guy. I'm not reusing some spot that I used before. And then wipe it off, going the opposite direction. I'm digging the top of this. That's looking good. Then we go to step 2. And if you're not talking and messing around, the magic juice goes a lot faster. If you got all your supplies ready, you're just focused, dialed in. You could get magic juice done even faster than me. Wouldn't even be hard. Okay. A little bit of step 3. Oh yeah, spray bottle with water. That's a good idea. A lot of people use just a little squirt bottle. I've seen people do that. That's kind of cool. Especially if you could put I'd be cool with that if like I had a big bucket, like a big trough underneath, and just you could do it like at the same time. I mean, at that point, you're guaranteed that you're not getting any swarf. Your paper's staying clear the whole time. If you're like adding lubricant, or whatever as you go, as you're sanding. It's a cool way to do it. Oh. Okay, step 4. When I first tried magic juice, I was really put off. I'm like, 6 steps, good Lord. Because and I was, in my head, I'm comparing that to what I was using was buffing. And what the heck happened there? Okay. And I'm like, I only do 2 steps buffing. And so I was a little bit put off by this number of steps thing. But what I wasn't really taking into account is it takes me longer on each one of the buffing wheels. So like the time is really no different, is what I kind of found. Like it's so fast because you can just run through these steps. And then I got better results and I was like, oh wow, okay. But I think the biggest thing that and I'm lucky enough, I have my old mini lathe. It's basically just a buffing machine now. That's all, it's set up. It's got the buffing wheels on. So I don't even have to set the buffing wheels up. And it still didn't save me any time because I would have to take off the pen off my turning lathe and then mount it on something and then go to the buffing station. And so even just that, takes some time. But with this, it's staying in place after the sanding and you don't have to change much. Just get your, little papers out and all that stuff. But the big thing is if you don't have a buffing machine, like if your buffing wheels aren't just set up all the time, the changeover for the lathe it makes the buffing wheels way longer at that point, which I didn't really think about because I don't do that. But then I thought about it more and I was like, oh. And then for me, I would actually go back and either remount this on the lathe. Oops, I forgot to switch to those paper things. Oh well. Or what I was doing in the past was I was actually setting up a different buffing wheel. It was like a string buff. So like a totally different type of buffing wheel, like a super soft one. And I would apply that Meguiar's 205 that way. So like that whole process was just kind of crazy. It's kind of amazing, but I find it funny when I'm like, oh, there's 6 steps? Good Lord. That seems like too much work. No, I wasn't saying the magic juice does not cause any issues. What I was saying is when I and this I haven't done this for a little while now. Let me finish with this step 6 here. Nope. And then I'll show you what would happen. So hold on a minute. And I'm actually going to explain two things because it depends on what we were talking about. But before, what I would do is I would have my blue paper towel. I would squirt on step whatever, wipe it on, and then turn the lathe on and do, the normal thing. And then at the end, what I would do, so, I feel like it's done now, right? The application or whatever. What I would do is I would fold over my paper towel, and then either with the lathe running still, actually in the beginning, the lathe would still be going 1500 RPMs, and then I would jam the paper towel into it and wipe off the blank. And then I thought, well, maybe that's not a good idea. So even still, I would wipe it off with it off, but sideways. And I'm pretty sure that the dry, not that the magic juice would dry out. I would literally fold over the piece of thing to a dry spot on the towel. There was no magic juice on it, and then be rubbing it while the lathe's running. And I'm pretty sure, especially when you get up to, like, I would say past step 4, definitely like 5 and 6. I'm pretty sure paper towel, wiping as this thing's going 1600 RPMs. Pretty sure you're putting deeper, like coarser scratches, let's say, than step 5 or 6. Definitely this is coarser than step 6. There's no question about that. 5, probably even 4 though. And so that's where I also realized like I got to do something different. So when I wipe off, I throw, when I'm done with that paper towel, as long as there's magic juice on the paper towel, you're okay. I do like to switch for step 5 and 6. Just I don't know, but what I do know is this is non-scratch, so I don't have to worry about scratches being added. So I just do it on step 5 and 6. Does it matter? I don't know. I really don't, but whatever. But what I do think is important is not to wipe off the blank with a paper towel. So I'll take my microfiber and I'm just basically wiping off the excess step whatever that way, because you don't want to leave step 1 on and then go to step 2. Then you got step 1 and 2 grit particles. So you do need to wipe that off in between grits somehow. But I would definitely go get something that's non-scratch, because once I did notice a difference once I started doing this. Once I stopped just wiping it down with paper towel. And it was like pretty noticeable. And here's the crazy thing, is I was still getting good results. That's how I started doing it when I started with magic juice, and it was still getting me glossier blanks than the buffing wheels were getting me. And one of the tricks to magic juice is, even if you don't get every little minor scratch out, it's still, I'm convinced that at least some of the steps, magic juice has some stuff in it that actually kind of fills gaps, like little scratches, and makes them not, what ends up happening is if you've got scratches all over your blank, that's what's going to make it dull. Those indentations refract light like photons, basically. They're not just bouncing off right into your eye, they're bouncing off and going a different direction. That's why it looks dull. So gloss is just, you're getting scratches small enough to where the photons aren't getting deflected, the little light particles. And so what's crazy is, even if I don't have this thing absolutely dead perfect, it still looks glossy. If it's really bad, then no, you can't have this like massively scratched up blank. But what would happen is, in the past, is you'd have like a few scratches here and there, and it would kind of kill the gloss completely. Where I can get away with like pretty perfect, and it's still very glossy. And that is an actual thing in car polishes. That's a thing where, like, I don't know what the material, if it's like a wax or what, but there's something that they add to some polishes that I'm convinced is in magic juice, because it has the same effect as some of those polishes do. So wipe off that way I don't get it on. It doesn't squeeze out when I'm assembling the components on there. All right, so let's set up the doohickey and let's get going. So soon, hopefully, I'll be getting a new pen press, and we'll try that Miles Craft one out. Let's see here. I'm gonna put down just to make sure I don't have any. Switch this. So I got to switch this differently. What am I doing here? I'm gonna do it this way. I think, yeah. It's crazy. So it's probably not my computer. I think it's the streaming software that's a problem. Anyway, all right, so we're going to zoom in here. That's pretty good. So here's our blank, and I like this. Like I said, I was kind of going for this where there was more black in the bottom, but I've got a little bit, well, on the back side there's a little bit of black and gold there, but you got a good section of green. So hopefully you can see that. It's kind of so glossy, it's reflecting all over the place. Which way do I want to? I'm going to do it this way. There we go. So you get this, it's almost like there's like a texture in there or something. It's pretty cool. I like that green a lot. That turned out great. And we've got our gold nuggets popping. Let's get on camera here. It's not overly crazy. I probably could have added a little bit more of the golden starlight in there, but it's looking good. So now I'm going to look inside. Here's one of my marks on the top there. So this right there, and there's my mark on the top. So we got it lined up. And in this case, it actually, these two black lines, I don't know if you can see that. There's like a little black line that actually should probably match up. Now, if that didn't match up and I had it like this, get on camera. I mean, it's not as good, obviously, but you could probably do a lot of things, but this is how we want it to look. So we've got that lined up there. And again, we're using the Element Junior. And so again, this is a solid brass kit. Pretty sweet, if you ask me. So I'm going to kind of make sure this is screwed together tightly. And we're going to start here, I think. Ooh, that's really tight. God, I don't think that's going to go in. Oof. Wow. Well, hopefully that'll go in. Again, I'm going to double check and make sure that's all the way closed. Find my mark. There it is. Let me get this thing started here. It's not lined up. There we go. Okay. Just making sure all these parts are the right way. I think they are. Okay. Nope. Okay, it just seemed a little tight at first. Make it a quick adjustment. And then we'll hammer it home. That actually went pretty well. And then there we go. Not too shabby. All right, so now I'm going to put this together and see if I did it right. It looks like pretty close. Maybe a little bit off, but everything's pretty well lined up there. So now let's see where we want to put the clip. I'm just going to kind of hold this over and see where. A lot of black on the back side, so I think I'm going to kind of keep this. So this kind of shows you. So again, the Olympic gold's a little bit more in the orange spectrum versus this brass. It's a little bit more like yellow. I think I like it like that. So I think we'll. I got all my parts out of the little baggies first. Come on. We'll do it like this here. I think I'm going to flip this though. There we go. Oh, clip is moving. Okay, don't get your glove cotton pinched in there. So I like that. That looks good. And then the back, I don't really care about how it looks on the back, really. You could maybe put the cap on and do all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to worry about that. All right, drove it home. Now, real quick, I'm going to apply some wax to those little threads. Just makes for a better experience when you have to change the ink out. So I'm just going to grab a little paper towel. This is Renaissance wax. You can use any paste wax. This stuff works well, but it's ridiculously expensive and I wouldn't recommend buying it for this purpose only. But if you do need like a paste wax of some sort that dries very quick, Renaissance wax is excellent. It's a microcrystalline. And for the amount that I use to do this, I'm fine with it. That's okay. Just gonna work that in a little bit there. There you go. There's some squeak. I just can't stand that squeaking. Just horrible. A little bit more of that wax. You don't need a lot. That's why I have no problem pulling out the Renaissance wax. To apply it, just a dab. I've even gotten away with using a candle, like just rubbing the threads into a candle. Now I could make this a fountain pen also. I've got the fountain nib section thing. I don't know if I have a nib that fits this offhand, but I could make it a fountain, so that's kind of cool. All right, so let's put the ink in, see how this thing feels in hand. And a nice Schmidt ink refill. That's nice. Ooh. So what do you guys think? I really like that cap, that green in the cap, and you get those little gold nuggets going on. Kind of holding it backwards, I guess, for you guys. Definitely could have gone a little bit less black, or like thinner, you know, like there's not a lot of black in this. It's just, it's kind of clumpy on the back. I would rather have thinner strands of it personally, but I mean, you know, it looks pretty good. I'm not really complaining here. Just would have liked to have a little bit more green in the black in the back there. And then let's see, how does this line up? Not like that. Like that, I think. Yeah. So there you have it. And a pretty nice gloss. Trying to see if I see any little scratches. I'm not really seeing any. If you've got an area where there's like scratches on it, you'll kind of, if you see a reflection light, it'll be kind of bent in certain areas. This thing's pretty, I'm really not seeing any areas that are really bad. Now again, I also, warn people, if you're kind of new to this, like really just look at it like a normal human would. If you pull out a magnifying loupe, like a jeweler's loupe, and you're going to see scratches most likely. I mean, it's just almost impossible to get every single scratch out. And even the highest abrasive is going to leave scratches in there. So if you've got like this like microscope that you're looking at this thing, the surface under, that's probably just going to lead to frustration mostly. So really, however, if it's dull, if there's areas that are dull, maybe pull out a thing and see what's going on. And I would recommend doing that before you assemble. But generally, I mean, this is great. Like I'm not really seeing anything, but again, even with this, like it looks good to me. If I pulled out like magnifying, like even just like a 10 times, like I have the ones that I do, I don't know, close up things like the rings and stuff like that. Even if I pulled those out and I had like the perfect raking light looking right at me, guarantee you there'd be scratches all over this thing if I was looking that closely. But it looks fine. There's a lot of gloss. Now, I could even possibly get this better if I spent maybe a little bit more time. There's maybe an argument, there for, I could maybe, one thing that could help, I've never really found it necessary, but you could maybe go up to the blue or even the pink, like 1 or 2 more grits higher with the Zona. I don't think that would really change a whole lot, but it could help. I definitely don't think you need to go all the way through all the Zona papers and then start at step 1 with Magic Juice though. Always be careful about how much pressure you're applying with the Magic Juice. That can cause some weird things, especially if you're like heating it up and doing that kind of stuff. So just be a little bit aware of that. But like I said, there's lots of different ways to do it. And if you're getting perfectly glossy pens, just keep doing it. If you're 100% happy with the method or the results that you're getting, when you're making pens, then, I mean, maybe if you're just curious, you could go out and, if you're not using Magic Juice, and that's one that's a pretty simple one to just, try out, and it's not that expensive. Okay, I can see that, but I think if you're happy with your results, then keep doing it. I think I fall into this category where it's like, it's pretty good, but I feel like maybe it could be better, or this could be easier. And what I've run into is like buying a whole lot of expensive stuff, or just buying a lot of different things, and like I'm just spending money and wasting time. And did I get massively better results? No, it's like marginal sometimes. So just try to find something that's giving you what you expect good results to be. And also, if you are selling pens, or even if you're giving them away as gifts, try to find friends that are not biased like the gift receiver. They're never going to be like, oh, it's not very glossy. So like try to find people who aren't the person you're giving the thing to, or, get feedback from customers if you've got that, and try to get honest opinions. Is this glossy? Does this look good? Is there any issues? That's your best guide, because I think that if you rely on your own, we're really close to these things. We know every little square millimeter, micron of the blank. You could cause yourself just a lot of frustration where it's not necessary, maybe it's good enough kind of thing. So just, try to get as many opinions. Other pen turners, if you go to like the pen turning gatherings and stuff like that, bring some pens and say, hey, honest opinion. I'm not going to get hurt, my feelings hurt if you tell me that I need to do better. That gives me a guidepost, So anyway, hopefully that kind of helps out. But like I said, if you're already feeling like, it's kind of dull or it's this or that, go through those things and take, a few, do like a handful of pens, like 5, and go through that process, like in between each grit, try to inspect it. Am I getting those scratches out that I need to be getting out? Do I need to do some more work? All that kind of stuff. And just do that for a little bit and see if maybe the way you were doing things needs to be changed, or maybe, switch to magic juice and see if that works better kind of thing. But do it for a short amount of time. Try and get that dialed in, and then just move on and have fun making pens. So anyway, let's see. Is there any other? Oh, the gold. Yeah, the gold nuggets. So that's the golden starlight glitter. I love the little. It's pretty good. You could. So one other little quick thing about that. So a couple things. If I wanted more gold nuggets, I could reduce the amount of Olympic gold, because that could take them over. Basically what's happening is if you have too much like mica powder, or this could even go with like a solid liquid pigment, color. The more opaque that is, the less deep you're going to be able to see little starlight glitters. Like you're only maybe going to see the surface if it's super opaque. So I could reduce the amount of Olympic gold. That this can get kind of finicky. But reduce that a little bit, or I could also add more starlight glitter, so there's just more of them. One of the nice things about just reducing, trying to get that gold, the Olympic gold, a little bit more transparent, just a hair. The nice thing is you don't have to add a whole lot more of the starlight glitter to get more effect. What could end up happening is if you add too much of the starlight glitter, it can just be like kind of overtake everything, and it's a little bit less magical. Reducing the amount of gold mica powder gives you more depth of those little nuggets, and I think that would probably be a better way to go. But you got to be careful because you don't want to be too see-through, So let's see, beeswax. Oh, nice. Yeah, make sure you don't overheat them. And somebody put a link. Somebody wanted a link to something. And, Joseph, I could put a link, but honestly, you could use any brand as long as it's a good brand. Don't go to Harbor Freight and buy sandpaper. That's not where you go. Don't buy the cheapest junk on Amazon. Get like a Norton 3M. I'm using Mirka, Klingspor. Trying to think of other sandpaper companies. Something that's reputable. Like people know it's out there. I would kind of stick to those ones. Those are guaranteed. Mirka, Norton, 3M, or what was the other one I said? Whatever. Klingspor is a good one too. Stick with a good brand, and all you need is just a wet dry. It's going to be a silicon carbide paper. Silicon carbide, those are pretty much, as far as I understand, like I'm probably with all those brands for sure. It's going to be the black stuff, the automotive. It may say automotive sandpaper on it or something like that. But silicon carbide is the type of grit particle. Most other sandpapers are going to be aluminum oxide. And I don't know if that matters totally. They do operate a little bit differently. I think the silicon carbide, I mean, generally, in theory, it should work better on like polish, plastics and things like coatings. That's what they use for auto body, to sand and do all that stuff. It also works on metal. You're doing metal sanding and stuff like that, but I don't really care what brand it is or anything like that. Just get silicon carbide, and I'm starting with 600 grit. I get better. You could also argue that, you could just get more silicon carbide grits. Because I basically only do 3 grits. I do 600. I would say it's maybe an equivalent, like an 800, and then like 12 or 1500, something like that. The problem is the silicon carbide paper, the actual paper that it's on, is like stiffer. And I don't think you're going to get better results using a silicon carbide going up the grits. I think you're better off going with Zona, like a polishing paper, because it's more malleable. I've tried sanding up, 1,000, and it just, once again, I was complaining about the micro mesh pads. It's too stiff, and I just feel like the paper's not really conforming to the surface, or you have to like jam it up there to do that. I don't think that's a good way to sand. I think Zona is a better way to go. So yeah, so any brand silicon carbide paper, 600 grit. You may even pick up like maybe a 400. I really don't think you need to. I think the 600, because there's so much of it and it works so well at taking, getting that material smoothed. I think 600 for just about anyone should work as that first step. Maybe get, a little bit of 400 if you have to step down. Like if it, and maybe if you're doing different types of things, like, this is for pens. If you were doing like bowls and different things, I would recommend a different strategy probably, so 600 should be good though. So anyway, let's see. I don't think there's any other questions or. Okay, I don't think I missed any questions either. So pretty excited about this. So again, the Pen Blank Club folks, your packages should be arriving probably Monday, hopefully, maybe Tuesday. They already went out, but I'm very happy with this. And so hopefully the mica powder, mixed with that liquid, just the dye. Hopefully that gives you guys some ideas. There's a lot of different ways you can play with this, but again, you don't even need to do like liquid pigment and mica. You could just throw a couple different shades of mica powder in the thing, the same cup, do a dirty pour, or do them kind of at the same time, and you'll get just an interesting different look than if you just grabbed one thing. So anyway, I had fun doing this. I'm happy with this pen too. So anyway, I hope everybody has a wonderful, let's see, yeah, St. Patrick's Day is coming up. So happy St. Paddy's Day to everybody. Hopefully everybody in the Pen Blank Club will enjoy the blanks this month as well. And I think that is about it. Oh, David was asking what pen kit. This is the Element Brass. And let's see, I think I have a link real quick here. I already have it up. And I'm going to put a link in the chat as well. So it's a Element Junior, the brass version. So the Element ones, it's solid brass. And this is a Turner's Warehouse exclusive thing. But they make them in Sierra, variant, cigar, and junior. And there's copper, brass, stainless steel, and aluminum. All solid material. This isn't a plating put on something else. So pretty cool. I'm very excited about this thing. Simple elegance kind of thing. They don't get all crazy with ornate, weird stuff going on with all this stuff. But what I love about these kits is this brass, over time, as you are touching it and it's exposed to air and all that kind of stuff, eventually it will darken and patina, just without even doing anything. If you want to get crazy with the Element kits, though, you can actually apply a patina. So with different chemicals, I'm not sure if brass, I don't know what the chemical solution, it might still be just vinegar and salt. That might work. There may be different like chemical variations, but you can actually just like expose them. The copper and the brass are the main ones for this patina that you can apply. Copper turns blue with vinegar and salt. It's really cool. A little bit more tedious. I don't want to mess with it personally, but I think a lot of people would love it. So you can get that patina beforehand. But if you don't want to mess with the chemicals and doing all that stuff, you can just, like I said, as you're touching it, the finger oils and all that stuff, the air mixes with that, just like any other brass that you would have to like polish to get, the tarnish off. it will kind of tarnish or whatever. So it's, which it's kind of cool, I think. It'll change over time. So anyway, thanks, Jim. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Hopefully the weather's good for you guys. I think there's some cold weather coming to like the Midwest, East Coast kind of thing, but we've got perfect weather. I would love a snowstorm or two in March, but I don't think we're getting that. So anyway, hopefully everything's good for you guys. And yeah, so next week we'll make some new blanks. I got a couple ideas rattling around in my brain for some fun color mixtures. So anyway, tune in next week. We'll do a little bit of resin casting. Thanks for everybody coming and joining the fun today, and I'll see you guys on the next stream.